Sebastian Vettel's Ferrari exit may not be the end of his Formula 1 career just yet, but nobody would be able to blame him if he did decide to call it an early retirement. He's an incredibly accomplished driver, one of the most successful of all time, the man who brought Red Bull to the forefront and the youngest F1 champion to date. Not to mention his semi-rivalry with Fernando Alonso that probably doesn't get as much attention as it should. So even if Vettel does have his eye on Renault or any other future F1s, it is safe to say he's already achieved quite a bit. These are 5 moments that have defined his F1 career so far. Toro Rosso victory. Sebastian Vettel, the first real success of the Red Bull Junior programme, began his F1 career at Sauber. Yes, for the 2007 United States Grand Prix, 19-year-old Sebastian Vettel replaced the injured Robert Kubica for a one-off race. He finished 8th, scoring a point on his F1 debut. That, and everything Vettel had done in his junior career up until that point, impressed Red Bull enough to stick him in the Toro Rosso for the season, after the awesomely named Scott Speed fell out of favour with the energy drink gods. Unlike every other Toro Rosso driver that would come after him, Vettel was not going to wait until he reached Red Bull before he took his first victory. That came at the 2008 Italian Grand Prix. Vettel's 2008 hadn't gotten off to the best of starts, with a string of DNFs early on. He then picked up a not so great P17 before an incredible run at Monaco, where he started 19th and finished 5th at Monaco. From this point, his points finishes started to become semi-regular, but nobody really noticed because have you seen this kid Lewis Hamilton battling Ferrari? Why would you be looking at the battle for P8? Well, Vettel was going to make them pay attention. At the Belgian Grand Prix, he pulled his signature trick of screwing up the start and falling backwards before making an incredible recovery. He and teammate Sebastian Bourdais were in the fight for a podium finish before it started to rain. Still, the two Sebastians managed to hold on to 3rd and 4th until the final lap, when they were passed by drivers on more weather-appropriate tyres. Still, P5 wasn't bad, and Vettel was looking forward to using that positive momentum going forward, because this guy may have only done about a season's worth of races up until that point, but he had the whole talk like a racing driver thing down to a T. And wouldn't you know, the next race is Italy. So Vettel takes his very first pole position, and I think it's important to note at this point that there's not this huge gap between Red Bull and Toro Rosso that we see today. Vettel and his teammate were both pretty much on par with Webber throughout the season and outperforming David Coulthard. So this wasn't as spectacular as if Kvyat suddenly beat Verstappen and Albon to take pole, but it's still pretty impressive. Unfortunately, Vettel couldn't have picked a worse day to try to take his maiden victory. Before the start of the race, there was heavy rain, and though it had cleared before the race started, it was still pretty wet out there, and there was more rain expected. Now, imagine being Vettel at this point. You're a lifelong Michael Schumacher fan. You're starting on pole for the Italian Grand Prix. Conditions are anything but predictable, and Ferrari have a driver in the championship fight. What do? Why, you put in a faultless drive, lead every lap bar the pit stop stages, and finish 12.5 seconds ahead of everyone else. There is not much else to it than that. Vettel was flawless. He became the youngest driver to win an F1 race and would retain that until a certain Dutch teenager came along in 2016. But did Verstappen have to do it with a year-old engine? Vettel did. And even though Toro Rosso weren't as far away from the front as they are today, it still blew everyone away. Maybe this would be the last time they saw this kid on the podium in Italy. Brazil 2012. So fast forward to 2012. Vettel has established himself as a natural talent and a big pain in Ferrari's backside. I grew up in a Ferrari household, he was Vet the butthead. But he was not perfect. Like I said in the first part, he has always had a habit of making mistakes and recovering from them. And Brazil 2012 is a perfect example of that. Vettel started 4th with his championship rival down in 7th. He immediately made life hard for himself by getting a bad start and falling backwards. This is exactly where a championship contender does not want to be, surrounded by people with nothing to lose. And what do you know, a wild Bruno Senna appears and collided with Vettel, sending him into a spin and causing visible damage the team could not fix. Newey was worried the damage would actually cause the car to catch fire. Fantastic. So after lap 1, Vettel was 22nd, and Fernando Alonso was on course to take his third title. Now, Vettel was not the only one having difficulties. Weather in Interlagos was causing mayhem, and by the end of lap 8, a lot of other drivers had fallen off the track, collided with someone else, or otherwise gotten goofed up. But a lot of drivers hadn't, and Vettel's climb up through the order post-engine mapping changes to 7th by the end of lap 8 was pretty incredible. He soon dropped backwards again when he moved on to Inters, but lap after lap Vettel was picking off driver and getting closer and closer to Alonso. The BBC was using was like sensational, while also getting hyped up about Nico Hülkenberg doing a thing. This was all by lap 20. Interlagos was a crazy race. So when the safety car came out on lap 23, Hülkenberg was leading. I know. Alonso was 4th and Vettel was 5th. If the race ended like that, Vettel was going to take the title and Ferrari fans everywhere were going to yeet the remote at the TV. Of course, it didn't stay behind the safety car forever, and Vettel thought, you know what, I want more of a challenge, so made a poor restart. Then Webber thought, you know what, I want Sebastian's position, and tried to pass around the outside at turn 1 only to screw up and run wide. The Red Bull team harmony. Then, because Vettel hadn't had enough of Brazilians ruining his race, Felipe Massa managed to get past him, and now he had Alonso's teammate between him and his rival. Still, no biggie. He'd amassed so big an advantage he could just chill there and win the title. Of course, neither Red Bull nor Vettel had any chill. Vettel continued to make up positions, and an uncharacteristically bad pit stop caused him to be delayed and do it all over again. When the race finally ended, thanks in no small part to Paul di Resta directing his car on the start-finish straight, Vettel had managed to climb up to 6th. It put him 3 points ahead of Alonso and made Alonso very, very sad. Multi-21. So by this point, Vettel wasn't the most liked driver in the paddock. Any driver who wins a lot is going to make some haters, and Vettel just could not stop winning. Now, I'm not saying people were looking for reasons to dislike him by the time Malaysia 2013 came around, but they weren't going to look a gift horse in the mouth. Vettel and Webber were not the best of friends at this point. Why? Because remember when Vettel had a bad start in Brazil and ended up getting up close and personal with Bruno Senna's Williams? Wow, Vettel blamed Webber for that, because Webber had squeezed him against the pit wall. Oops. It wasn't the only thing, but it's safe to say things were pretty tense at Red Bull. Not pack your drivers in a caravan and take them to Wales tense, but tense. So Malaysia was another one of those races where the weather couldn't make up its mind what it wanted to do, and tyres played a key part in the early stages of the race. Vettel started off in the lead, but then pitted for dry tyres a little too early, and once the pit stop shook out, Webber was ahead of him. So Vettel was pitting earlier than Webber, but he was also faster and somehow seemed to have the better tyres after the second round of pit stops. Webber was trying to conserve his tyres to make it to the third round of pit stops, and Vettel had caught up with him. Vettel phoned the pit wall to tell them he was the faster driver, so he should be allowed through, to which Webber said, "Hold my Fosters," and went 0.3 of a second faster. So Vettel grumpily stayed behind Webber until the next round of pit stops, when he came out of the pits behind Webber again, much to his delight. They all pitted for a 4th time, and Webber was on old tyres, but he was ahead of Vettel and feeling pretty happy. Vettel wasn't happy and really wanted that win. Like, it was so close. If he could just pass Webber, it's not like Webber really needed the win, right? Red Bull were not going to deal with this. They had a 1-2 in the bag, the tyres were fragile, and they just needed to come home in one piece. So, no fighting. They were both told over the radio, multi-map 21, which essentially means turn your engines down a peg because you obviously aren't going to be overtaking anyone, now are you? To which Vettel says, hold my schnitzel, and tried to overtake Webber. They were so incredibly close to touching, it's a surprise Christian Horner didn't have a heart attack. Webber wasn't going to go down without a fight and defended hard, but Vettel managed to get past. Phew, panic over, right? Wrong! Because then Webber tried to get back past and Vettel almost pushed him wide to defend himself. Vettel won, Webber came second. Hamilton, feeling very much like he didn't deserve to be stuck here with these two bickering teammates, tried to say his good friend Nico Rosberg deserved third. Unhappy comments were made, Vettel apologised to Webber and the team, Horner tried to calm down the situation and probably made everything worse. Vettel took back his apology and they all lived happily ever after. First Ferrari win. So we'll fast forward again. Things went downhill very fast for Vettel at Red Bull once the engine regs changed and Daniel Ricciardo came along to show Vettel up. So Vettel switched to Ferrari for 2015, probably making Alonso very, very sad. And suddenly he was no longer Vettel but ahead for Ferrari fans around the globe. Vettel's move to Ferrari was pretty symbolic. Here he was, a Michael Schumacher fan, faced with really having to rebuild the team after a demoralising few years, partially because Vettel kicking butt when he was at Red Bull. He was young and exciting and German and someone Ferrari fans could get behind, especially when he was competitive. So we're back in Malaysia and this is actually a relatively simple race as far as Vettel's races go. He started second, held off Nico Rosberg and was handed a race lead when Lewis Hamilton pitted under safety car conditions. Both Mercedes were running a 3-stop strategy while Vettel was on 2 stops. So when Vettel did finally come into the pits for the first time, Hamilton had a brief time at the front of the field before he had to come into the pits again. He couldn't overtake Vettel but was again handed the lead when Vettel pitted, only for Hamilton to pit a few laps later. So Vettel came home to take the win 8.5 seconds ahead of Hamilton in the most uncharacteristically Vettel way, but it was a sign of a real turning point for Ferrari. Ferrari hadn't won a race since the 2013 Spanish Grand Prix. Spain was the 5th race of the 2013 season. So things had been not great at the team since then, and Mercedes had been handing them their butts on a platter in 2014. Even Williams had scored more podiums than them the year before. So Vettel was kind of like a restart, and this victory is only the 2nd race of the season. There was a real hope that this year wasn't going to be like last year. Vettel could be Ferrari's saviour. And obviously that never happened, but never mind. Brazil 2019. Vettel wasn't Ferrari's saviour, but he was top dog at the team for a long time. Then someone at Ferrari had this genius idea where they thought maybe promoting one of their junior drivers to the team might be a good thing. Never mind the fact Ferrari wasn't exactly known for having 2 super competitive drivers at the same time, and Vettel wasn't exactly known for getting on well with teammates that were roughly his equal. This is great, what could go wrong? Well, what could go wrong was Ferrari apparently forgetting they had 2 drivers join strategy meetings and often scuppering one race to help another. And it's easy to see this as always helping Vettel by throwing Charles Leclerc under the bus, but it sometimes worked the other way. We weren't really anywhere near packing drivers in a caravan and taking them to Wales territory, and it appeared off track. Vettel and Leclerc didn't not get along. But during races over team radios, you got the impression at least one of the drivers was asking the team what Ferrari was going on. And everyone on the outside was expecting these 2 to butt heads. After all, it hadn't gone great when a new teammate showed up out of the wild at Red Bull, so why would things go better here? So every little thing was adding up to build this possibly fantasy rivalry. Then Brazil happened. It was a relatively simple race. Hamilton was leading, shocking. Verstappen wasn't too far behind, but it didn't look like anything was going to upset the balance. Oh no, Bottas has stopped on track. So on lap 53 of this 71 lap race, the safety car comes out. Hamilton leads Verstappen, Vettel, Albon and Leclerc when the race resumes for an 11 lap showdown, and all hell breaks loose. Alexander Albon makes a fantastic move past Vettel, and now Vettel has his teammate right behind him. Not that he's looking backwards, because Vettel really wants that position back. He makes a move, it fails, now it's Leclerc's turn. Leclerc pulls what should have been a stunning move at turn 1, but Vettel does what Vettel does best and doesn't back off. Leclerc moves left, Vettel moves right, 2 try to become 1, and oh no, everything's broken. Everyone disliked that, except probably Carlos Sainz, who moved up a few positions and was in the perfect place to profit when Hamilton was demoted for colliding with Albon. Funny how these things work out. So those were 5 moments that have defined Vettel's career to date. He has had so many highs and his fair shares of lows, so it's going to be fascinating to see what he does next.